Hello everybody, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be going over how to create realistic piano melodies. So let's get right into it. To begin, I already have a piano picked out actually, which is the Giant from Native Instruments via their contact player. I did change some of the default options a little bit. I made it a bit softer and turned on the XXL because it adds more sustain, more space to it. And the vibe that we're going to be going for today in the video is like a sad piano type. So that's what we're going to go after. So to begin, we'll create our MIDI clip, and we'll just turn this off and start from the beginning. So to begin, the first tip would be, of course, choose a VST or a piano that you're comfortable working with or that has a sound that you like. The reason why is because you're going to be listening to this for quite a while you create the melody, the chord progression. So if you don't like it, you're just going to annoy yourself and you're not going to want to make it. The second tip is to create a chord progression that resolves itself. And usually the best way to do that is to make it start or make it end on the 1. And the 1 would be essentially the root note of whatever scale you're working in, which brings us to the second tip, and sort of the third tip is to work within a musical scale. Now, the reason why is, sure, you can go outside of the scale, and you don't even have to work in a scale. Rules are meant to be broken, though for the sake of this video, for the sake of beginners who are getting into this, or just someone who likes to follow a format, I'd recommend working in a scale. So for this case, in Ableton, I believe FL Studio has a similar feature. We're going to enable a scale. Now you can do it all by heart, by knowledge, though to keep things simple for you guys, we're just going to work in a scale so we can see the notes. So if we do enable this, I was previously on there. So if we do enable this, we'll see currently we're on D minor. We can change this to any scale we want. For giggles, we'll go to B minor. And we can see here the B is selected. The B is the 1 of the scale. So that's our root. Now, for a realistic sounding, melancholic, sad progression for our chord progression here, we're going to do pretty common progression. You'll hear it in a lot of Juice WRLD songs, maybe some XXXTentacion songs and other more sad hip-hop songs, is a 1-7-6 or a 1-7-6-5 progression. Now the reason why is because it will be descending in the way that we're going to create it. Otherwise, it would be a 1-7-6-5, which for the root notes sounds like this. Though since we want it more sad, we'll bring it down an octave so it descends, so it comes down. So if we listen to it now. Now we're not going to play it in this way because that sounds boring, to be honest, and also just having a chord fit into every beat of the entire measure gets really uninteresting to your listeners' ears. So we're going to change this up a bit. Now we are in a 140 tempo. We're just going to listen to the BPM with the metronome just to see what we feel, where we want our chords to go. Great, yeah, so that's what we got. What I'm feeling here is we're going to go on the 1, maybe drag it out a whole bar and a little bit longer. Go to the 7 and bring it to the 3rd bar. The 6 will go to, we'll try this and then go to the 5 for the rest of it and really drag out that 5. Let's see how that sounds. Maybe we can actually have this shorter, more as a passing. That sounds good to me. For the sake of this, I'm going to drop it down an octave. So we can use chord codes, which would be 0, 3, 7. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to create the minor chord. Or since we have this scale highlighting in the background, the easiest way to remember this is just to skip a note in the scale. So we would skip this one, go to this one, skip this one, go to this one. That's our chord. So if we do that again here, skip this one, go to this one, skip this one, go to this one. And we're just going to repeat that. And this is our chord progression. So if we listen to it now. Now that sounds like a good chord progression, though it sounds very robotic because it's perfectly on time and not human because we're slamming all the notes, which is our next tip. Don't slam all your notes. And the reason why is, just as I mentioned, it doesn't allow it to sound human. As a piano player, you wouldn't be hitting every note at max volume the entire time. You would have some notes quieter, some notes louder, and it sort of paints this picture to your listener of whatever you're trying to convey. So since we want this more sad, more melancholic, we're going to turn down the velocity. So if we highlight all of them, click here and drag down the velocity, that's great. It'll make the piano sound softer, for example. Turn it up a bit for the sake of the video though. And while that sounds nicer and softer, it still doesn't sound human because every note is playing at the exact same volume. So what we're going to do is just highlight all the notes, and then you can also adjust the volume of each note, the velocity of each note individually if you want. But what I like to do, just to make things more simple and easier, is highlight all the notes, go on the left side here in Ableton. You can adjust this as much as you want throughout the whole velocity range. I'm going to drop it to, let's say, 12 and hit randomize. And you'll see this will randomize all the notes within 12 velocity range of where we set them. Yeah, so let's listen now. That sounds good to me. Now to make this sound more full and also more realistic, we're going to take all the root notes and drop them down an octave. Now if we listen again, that sounds a lot better to me. So while we don't want to slam all the notes, the next tip brings us to don't hesitate to change your notes. And what I mean is they don't have to be perfectly in these textbook chord definitions. Like for example, the B minor chord doesn't have to be B, D, and F. It could be, if we're going up to read the chord, it could be F, B, and D. And this can add a completely different color to your piano. So if we were to drop, say, all of these, because we want that descending pattern still, if we were to drop all the top notes an octave, this is what we get. That sounds nice to me. It's giving me Orlando by XXXTentacion vibes. So yeah, that would be the next tip. Don't hesitate to do that because again, add a lot more flavor, and yeah, you can sort of control the way you want the progression to go even more by doing that. The next tip would be to not have everything all on time. Again, like the velocity, we want to humanize this to make it sound more realistic. And a piano player's, they're not going to hit every note on the exact same, like at the exact same time. It's just not going to happen. So we want to play with them, and it also, again, can add more feeling to the chords. For example, if we were to roll this one, So we'll roll it up, just slightly move it off time. This is what we get. Like, that sounds so much more emotional to me rather than... So again, we'll just roll it a bit. And I'm just going to go through and do it with all of them. We'll speed through this part. Okay, so after adjusting all the timing, this is what we have. Now that sounds great and a lot more emotional to me, a lot more realistic, a lot more poetic, which is great. Now, if we want to spice this up a little bit more, we can by adding some passing notes and just more melody to this. So for example, if we were to do, let's say here we add this one, again, we want to lower it, and we'll bring this one and sort of make it play a little bit later to swap over into this note, and we will we'll do maybe this one too up here. So if we listen, because this note is in this chord, so if we repeat it again around, let's say here, and we'll make it descend as well. So let's have another note here. Maybe raise it a little bit. Yeah, that sounds great to me. And we'll just do it again. And let's listen. I'll raise this one. Perfect. And then what we can do is to make the chord progression longer, say 8 measures, we can just change the last bar of it a bit. And I realized I sort of repeated this here, so what I'm actually going to do is just have the chord drag itself out. We're not going to repeat anything. It sounds a lot more dramatic and it kind of holds onto your ear. So that is how we would create more realistic piano melodies. The bonus tip I would give is when you're mixing your beats, say we have an 808 under all of this, or really any sort of bass, is so to not muddy up your mix or make things more just harder to mix or just interfere in that bottom end. What I'd recommend is when the 808 hits, so say we have another track here, we'll just call this 808, and it's just playing at the same time, right? And then afterwards we don't have it. The bonus tip would be for the piano, we'll take out the bottom end, which is usually around here. This is the core of the 808, and natural pianos, as we see, do have that bottom end to them, which is nice and sounds good, though when the 808's playing, you're not going to hear that bottom end because it's going to overpower it. So to give yourself headroom in your mix, not muddy it up, and allow the 808 to come through clearer, I'd recommend having this high pass EQ on it. And then when it's not there, you can automate the EQ to turn off. And then that way when the 808 is there, it's off, or it's on, so they don't interfere. See? And then when the 808's gone, you can kind of bring in that bottom end back into the piano and make it more emotional again. And then that way you still get that full effect of the piano when you want to. This would be perfect during a bridge of a song. And then you also, again, don't worry about like muddying up the mix or having too much interference there. So that would be the bonus tip. If you liked everything you saw here, please like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know what else you guys would like to see. I hope this helped out a lot. And yeah, hope you enjoy the rest of your day.